Music instruments. The first thing you do when the first thing you learn when you buy a music instrument is just how to make sound on it, play some notes. But with a low quality music instrument, sometimes they just don't play, or they're really hard to play, so it'd be harder for a new player to realize this. If something's leaking or it's not working right, they're still trying to play through it and they can't really tell. You don't have to know any music theory or how to read any of this to play a music instrument. You just have to make sound on it. In contrast with drums and the piano, all you have to do is hit the drum with sticks. And the piano, you just push on the keys and you make the sound. And it'll sound pretty good if you play a note at a time and you have no idea how to play it. But with a the band instrument, you actually have to know how to play it right. I'm going to mostly focus on woodwinds because these are pretty complex instruments. There's a lot of moving parts. And for the cheap, low-quality instruments, being so complex is a pretty big problem. The mechanics have to be precisely together. Everything has to fit, it's like a puzzle. And the tolerances have to be perfect and everything lines up. But with cheaper instruments, the tolerances aren't really all that great. When you close the pad, you can see that the pads have to hit on these rings. If the pad's off a little bit, it's going to have a leak. And this is a basic repair, is just sitting the pad flat back on the tone hole. And sometimes these new cheap instruments are broken like that to begin with, right off the shelf. They have leaks, they're hard to play, but a new instrument isn't going to, a new player isn't going to realize that, and will keep trying to play through the instrument that doesn't work right. Another big problem with being cheap is the metal they use in the keys. A good instrument would use brass, but a cheap instrument would use something called pot metal. They just kind of make it by pouring metal into like a shape, like a cupcake. But with brass, they stamp it out and they sand it down and file it, and it's much stronger. When the pot metal is soft, so you have to fix the instrument, fix the pads to sit flat, that you have to get it fixed much more often, because it keeps going out of adjustment and leaking. Even if it was bought it brand new and it played good when it was new, the metal is soft and it still keeps moving around. And these are the holes of there's a light inside this instrument. And there's a chunk of metal that's perfectly flat on top. And you can see right here, through the light, there's something right there that's blocking it. That's when the pad's trying to sit flat and the actual hole isn't even flat, that's going to make it leak. And that's a pretty technical thing to do at the factory, but it's an expensive repair. And they're pretty common on the cheaper music instruments, because it just saves so much money not to do that. And with the soft metal, on a good instrument, you can just weld the key back together. It snaps. The instrument is a good name, is a catalog of parts. You can just buy a new part. But on a cheap instrument that has a random brand name, you can't just order another part, you'd have to fix it. But since the metal is soft and actually melts faster, you'd actually melt the part, you'd actually melt the thing. So once a part breaks on these instruments that have the soft keys, it's pretty much junk. You can't be fixed. You could make a custom key, like handcraft a key to make it fit, but it's going to be real expensive. The good part about these instruments is they're almost always new. They're super shiny. That's what people like. And if you don't realize what you're buying, this is a good way to sell it, because people just think it looks as shiny, it's new, it must play good. And they can have random brand names, and it's hard to figure out anything about them. This saxophone is 70 years old. It still plays great. So basically, you just want something with a good brand name you can look up on the internet, and it'll last decades. Well, a cheap one, just until the key breaks, and then it's useless.